where the drama starts. Lap 30, 8 laps to go. Sandobi hoping to take advantage of these lapped cars. Poleski goes dives on the right side. Very aggressive here. This is lap 4. The two Viceroys. Bill Frazier ahead of Matt Poleski. Frazier's off. Frazier hit the grass. You hit that tire wall, your day is done. Well, now it's lap 20. The Williams still trying to get around the Terrell team as he'll go around the left car and around Mills at the same time. At the same time, he's got the inside corner. Will he ride the curb? Yes, he will. He will get him on the inside. Vito Maria leading us all into Moss's corner. Look at the beauty as his right side will cook the grass. Oh, a 180, no, a 360. Oh. Who will yield going into this corner? It's really not meant for too wide as it will be Gernald. Gernald will yield. Lots of smoke picking up from that Williams car. He is pushing it to the absolute limit. 26 of 30 now. Only 4 laps to go. He's going to get the run coming out the final corner. He's going to pull up side by side with the leader. It's going to be a drag race to the finish. Who is going to get there first? It's going to be...
Since the course's inception in the 1930s, the Mount Panorama circuit has been a significant part of Australian sporting history. It has attracted drivers and fans alike thanks to its mix of speed, danger, and endurance. In the early days of Formula 1, this massive 6.2-kilometer track hosted 4 non-points-paying Australian Grand Prix, most recently in 1958. Lex Davison, the grandfather of IndyCar driver James Davison, was the last competitor to win an F1 event at the track. Some of the main national open-wheel series, such as the Australian Formula 3 Championship and the Australian Formula 4 Series, have also made recent appearances at the mountain. Today, the top drivers in the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series will make their way around this 23-turn course. Who will take the checker flag? We're about to find out on the Global SimRacing Channel. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's coverage of the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series for Round 5 of 2020's second season from the virtual Mount Panorama circuit in Bathurst, Australia. I'm Justin Prince. Alongside the booth today is Ocean Puhaka. Joe Peak is in the director's seat, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Now, with such a difficult track in nature, it's fitting to take a look at your GSRC lap guide to find the best way around this track.
Welcome to Mount Panorama Circuit. Most drivers simply refer to this place as Bathurst, with it being located just to the southwest of the city's major hub. But most ominously, and perhaps appropriately, it's been nicknamed the Mountain. With more than 500 feet of elevation change over the course of a lap, it's easy to understand why. Though originally built for racing, it's become a street circuit over time, with the track itself used for regular traffic and featuring residential housing all along the roads. This makes this 4-mile, 23-turn course incredibly unique in the world of racing. In the past, the track has hosted a variety of types of cars, including open-wheelers. But modern safety standards means that most competitive racing has now been limited to sports cars and touring cars. However, the dangers are very real due to the incredibly high speeds and lack of runoff throughout much of the circuit. The quickest parts are the run up the mountain straight towards Griffin's Bend, and then the flat-out blast back down the Conrad Straight and into the chase. This chicane was added in the late 80s to break up the run down to Murray's Corner. But while most chicanes are derided for ruining the character of a track, the terrifying speed as you approach it and the general difficulty make it fit right in with Bathurst challenges. However, the toughest portions are undoubtedly along the mountain itself, with notorious corners like the Cutting, Brock Skyline, the Dipper, and Forest Elbow. In fact, one of the more unique worries of this course is that all of these parts are so narrow that track blockages due to wrecks are not uncommon in the first few laps. The Australian fans often line the fences and hillsides to witness the daredevil spectacle of drivers trying to claim King of the Mountain. You can't blame them with how rare of a sight a track like Bathurst is today.
That was your GSRC lap guide for the best way around Mount Panorama Circuit. Now to talk more about the track, let's bring my co-announcer for today, Ocean Puhaka once again. Glad to have you with us today. What can you tell us about this racetrack?
I'm glad to be here with you, Justin. Well, Bathurst, does it really need any introduction? We got 6.2 kilometers of winding roads around Australia's finest terrain. The walls are close, it is treacherous, the cars are fast, and any hit into the concrete will mean the race is over for you. 23 turns here, and track temp is 36 degrees. That means the drivers have a lot of treacherous places to navigate.
And this might have a lot of treacherous consequences to the Drivers' Championship. Now, Ocean, what do those driver standings look like for these Sunday Series drivers?
Well, Justin, it has been Mr. Consistency himself at the top. Antti Lepistö leading with 192 points ahead of Jamie Hall with 178. Gernot Frisch, after the unlucky race in Spa, is in P number 3, Chris Bauman 4th, and Alex Milward 5th. Now, Justin, I believe you do have the team standings for us.
Yes, indeed. Let's take a look at how those standings are currently shaping out with the Arrows Racing team on top of the pylon with Alfa Romeo 27 points back in the standings. Then you have Martini Racing Team Lotus in 3rd position and Team Terrell inside the top 4. Team McLaren is just 37 points back at the top of the pylon, rounding out the top 5 entering today's race. That's a look at your standings entering today. Let's take a look towards your race details as these drivers currently make their way around for solo qualifying. It's easy to know that it's round 5 of 12 of the campaign, but these drivers will have to survive 23 laps around this circuit. Open setups, incident limit is 17 before you get a drive-through penalty, 25 before a disqualification here at Bathurst. And of course that means a lot, OCN, in terms of the danger factor, because this is a dangerous and difficult track for these machines.
It is. You got ground effects, you got such fast corner speeds, and you got those curbs you like to ride in the V8. If you've seen V8 supercars race here, down under, if you see GD cars race here, well, these Lotus machines, they cannot take those same curves, and they will react differently to the changes in track incline, in the elevation changes. And this car likes to be raced with a lot of wing, with a lot of downforce. Well, these long straights mean that the cars have to be raised up. So raise your skirts, gentlemen, and let's go.
Yes, indeed, and many of these drivers are making their way around the racetrack. In total today, 2 different splits of competitors. For these drivers, a grand total of about 22-23 competitors in this particular split trying to earn the most points they can. John Stevens trying to come across the stripe, moves himself up into 6th position with a 153.131. Then there's Carl Villeneuve. He looked impressive in practice. Just recently ran in the 10:30 race in preparation for today's main event. His one time a 153.623, 2/10 slower than his previous time around the racetrack. Now, as we take a look at some of these competitors making their way around the racetrack, it's going to be interesting to see here who can get good track position. We were talking about this before, OCN. It could be a race of survival, especially if you're in the mid to back pack with how hot this track is in terms of grip and how windy it is.
Yeah, it's very windy, and that's going to have an effect on top of the mountain. I'm watching Tim Claessen's on his 2nd lap right now, the Belgian driver. Remember, he won on his home turf last week at Spa. Let's see if he can do a repeat performance. He's been impressive here. But coming back to your point, not only do you not want to start in mid-pack because of the danger factor, but also because Bathurst gets so narrow on top of the mountain, and there is nowhere to go in case somebody spins. Well, there's gonna be a pile-up. You're gonna at least lose a lot of time, if not your car performance. You know, your car can break, get damaged. You're gonna lose a lot of time in any case. You don't want to start behind anyone who you're not sure about. So this qualifying is extra impressive here, especially with how difficult it is to actually overtake them.
Driver on top of the pylon is Timo Bascalampi at the moment. Then you have Costa, then Lepesta, along with Jurix on top of the top 5. And up to the top of the board, Tim Claessen's with a 152.229.
Yeah, that was an impressive lap. I was watching him. He didn't get a time on his first lap, so he was under a lot of pressure. Freak Tenkate is still on his lap. He'll be the last one to cross the line. Let's see if he can get a time on board. Currently sitting last, 153.5. That's a good lap, getting him 13th with car number 24. And I believe we do have also the running order now, or the starting order at least.
Yes, indeed, because all the drivers are done qualifying, everyone put in a time. It's Tim Klassen's on top of the board with a 152.229. That is around the estimated pole time entering the week. Then you have Timo Vasculapu starting in second position, then Costa Lepesta along with Frisch rounding out the top 5. Marco Dorix is in 6th with Alex Millward looking to wiggle his way around from 7th. Mike Rasmus starts in 8th, John Stevens and Jamie Hall round out the top 10.
Carl Villeneuve is 11th with Chris Bauman starting only 12th. Freak Tenkate 13th, Thomas Thorpe 14th, then it's Joshua Leocata, Martin Yoon, Tony Garcia, Martin Gromberg, Timothy Reed, and Marc-Andre Dufresne rounding out your top 20. A lot of new names between those positions.
Alexis Tapavico starts 21st, Barry West, Keith Herner, and Pablo Suarez round out the 24 drivers, all set to go for the standing start rather for today's race, separated by in total about 3 seconds or so from the top of the pylon to the bottom of the pylon. These drivers have only a few more seconds of preparation to go. Your expectations once more for today?
I'm expecting a lot of interesting racing, 23 laps of hell for these drivers. Let's see who can make it through.
We'll see as still we're waiting for a decent portion of the field to roll their cars onto the starting grid for today's exciting event. Engines are now roaring. They wait for the lights. Green lights are on. We're underway from Bathurst. A good launch by the 3 machine, already near 3 wide per second. As they run their way through Hell Corner, a clean start a majority of the field as they go up the mountain straight.
A great start for these guys. No big incidents inside as well. Some guys running side by side trying to get position. Inside line is the king as you get to the second corner.
Griffin's Bend coming up already. Klassen's up by more than 2+ seconds. Drivers rumbling their way through the corner, including teammates fighting as everyone starts to single file out as they go up to the cutting and up the mountainside. And as you talked about, the wall's so close here, if you make one mistake, it can collect everyone behind you.
Indeed so, and I'm looking at the mid-pack right now. Such an exciting pack. Teemu Vaskulampto being so unlucky this season, having crashed out every Sunday Grand Prix so far. He's in second place. Behind him, Antti Lepistö, Juanmi Costa, Marco Derix. Then it's a lot of veterans. Gernot, Alex, Jamie, and Mike Rosimas. And out of those guys, that back between positions 6, 7, and 8, Gernot, Alex, and Jamie Hall, that's gonna be an interesting one to watch, because I'm sure a lot of those guys, they know how to race Bathurst, they know they have to be consistent, but they also want to get ahead of the guys they don't know that well. Marco Derix, Juanmi Costa, both relatively new names. Let's see how they withstand the pressure.
See how they do indeed here as they make their way down the Conrad Straight, one of the longest straights, in fact the longest straight. Taking half of this racetrack to try and slipstream for passes. Will anyone try and make the dive into the chase? No, this time everyone stays single file in rhythm for the most part across the field. Now keep in mind the driver in second spot, you referenced him a little bit in his bad luck. He was the quickest driver in practice, OCN, just prior to these drivers rolling onto the track for this Sunday event. His pace was a good 3+ tenths quicker than anybody else in that session.
Yes, Teemu is a fast driver, no doubt about that, but he also needs to get his head together, makes too many mistakes. Has done pretty well since the introduction of the new TAR model into these cars. He's been fast, he's been up there in terms of speed. I would like to see some more consistency. Marco going for the move. 5th place.
The car you just seen, by the way, started in 22nd spot. That is Leo Cata, who has had to come in to pit stop. So he's had to come and serve some service very early in this event from the back part of the field. A couple drivers now make their way up the hillside as they try and keep the rhythm. Currently the separation for the lead, already almost 3 seconds as one car's in the wall is Jamie Hall.
Oh no, Jamie, you don't want to do that. Well, he is back in the pit lane and his race is over, so what he tried to do is challenge his teammate Alex Milward round the outside into the cutting, just hit his teammate very clumsy indeed. Braking too late. Alex had to brake early. I'm sure Jamie was caught out by that. And then Jamie hit his teammate, damaged his teammate's car, went to the outside wall, and well, the right side tires hit the concrete, and that's all she wrote for Jamie.
Yeah, that is significant damage will likely end his race. By the way, the 20 machine is off and away after 42 seconds at the pit stalls, as Hall was joining into said stalls. Taking a look at the slipstream train, this is about second on back at the moment, currently separated by about a good 3-4 car lengths. These machines have this potential to have a lot of draft down the straightaways. How much do you think these long straights, such as the Conrad straight, will factor in today as well as the Mountain Straight? Two of the best passing zones normally at Bathurst.
You have to be about 6-7 tenths back, 6 tenths back to get the proper draft. But when you do, it's really great. The problem with these cars is that when you move over the center line, you bottom out a little bit because how low these cars run. You get sparks, and that's gonna kill your momentum. So you need to get the run, and you need to wait very close up until the chase to get your move actually done. It can be very difficult if you run over the bumps. Another thing I noted, by the way, Justin, Alex Milward has significant damage on his car. He's still running in the 7th place, but remember, it was his teammate Jamie Hall who hit him, and as a result of that, his steering is a little bit bent, and he's fighting pressure from Mike Rosimas, Chris Bauman, and John Stevens.
And not only that, take a look at the back wing right here too. That's also bent up here. You mentioned the effects on the steering. How do you think that's going to affect the car overall with having that damage on the wing already? He nearly got reeled in by Mike Rasmus behind him.
Yeah, well, that's gonna be something he has to fight all race long. He can't really come to the pit lane and repair that. That'll be his race over. He will just have to get used to it. Just get used to it over the course of the race. Of course, it has an effect. It doesn't seem to have too much of an effect on his top speed, mind you. But just coming into the corner, I saw him being very loose already. That's gonna change the entire balance of his car setup. Now, the fortunate thing is that it still seems to turn fairly well into the corners. At least those turning right, those turning left, not so much. So it's gonna have an effect. I would say about half a second per lap at least, if not more. Now he just needs to keep it consistent, and Mike Rosimas, I'm sure Chris Bauman will be aware of the situation. They will try to hunt him down.
Taking a look at the train and just outside the top 10 meanwhile, as small groups have started to form up. Currently it's John Stevens leading the group, then you have Garcia trying to go after the chase to try and battle for position. Garcia is the biggest mover in this field so far, a +6 from the drop of the green flag, and the John Player Special Machine just hasn't been able to quite get into the top 10 yet, although his pace was a good 6 tenths quicker last time by. This time by the stripe, he was a tenth slower than Stevens.
Yeah, so at this early point, you don't really want to concentrate on the lap times too much as just you know, get your groove. It's still lap 4. You have to, at this point, just take care of the tires. The car will feel fast on the first and second lap, then it kind of starts to die down a little. There comes this, what I like to call the calm point, and you just need to calm down, get consistent, wait for the fuel to burn to get your wheels under you once again. The real surprise of the race for me, it's been Marco Derrick so far. His performance quite excellent. He's sitting in the 4th place, just behind Antti Lepista, and we know about Antti, we know how consistent and fast he is, always on or near the top 3, so someone relatively new being able to stick it up to him so well, that's mighty impressive indeed. We will hear more from this guy in near future, that I'm sure of, but of course catching up is one thing, Justin, passing is whole other.
Absolutely. Currently making their way through the Forest Elbow. Now actually lost a lot of time on the final part of the mountainside as he went from the Dipper all the way to Forest Elbow, and his gap in distance went from dipping down to trending upward in terms of how long much he has to try and close up. Currently about 4 or 5 car lengths once again, the distance between the two, but it is just, that shows just the importance of the mountain section when it comes to Bathurst in general. If you end up struggling in that section, you can lose a ton of time, especially to the drivers in front. That in turn, if you don't make a mistake or do well in that section, might set you up to stay within trains like this.
Indeed, and I just looked at the top speed for our 2 leaders, Tim Klaas and Teemu Vaskilampi. Both of them were around the eagle, 200 and 68, 69 kilometers per hour, so not much of a difference there. Not much of a difference between them in the pace either. Teemu unfortunately lost a lot of time in the opening laps, so the gap has opened up to 3.1 seconds. Behind them, Antti and Marco. Antti also around the same wing, Marco getting a bit of drop, being a little bit faster. And behind them also, it looks like the field has spread out a little bit, but there is a good battle brewing between Tony Garcia and Carl Villeneuve. Let's see how that shakes up for the 11th place.
Curious to see, yes, indeed, too. Villeneuve had to get off the gas. Garcia has already dropped back from Stevens. May mention the time starting to pop up a little bit as you take a look at the train once again. Again, you can't pass Rowie in Mountain Zone unless you are extremely brave and extremely lucky. No one wanting to push their luck for obvious reasons yet as they make their way past McPhillamy Park along the rumble strips once again for the downhill side. And this is where Garcia lost a lot of time before. Just take a look, just the slight differences of lines these drivers are taking.
Yeah, and it looks like to me that Garcia is holding up the pack behind him just a little bit. Carl Villeneuve a little bit faster. Thomas Thorpe as well. We've seen the Swede come back to form after many years of absence up here in Sunday Grand Prix Series. Martin Yoon as well trying to stick up to them, so is Fricken Cafe. So if he doesn't, Carl Villeneuve doesn't get a move under him relatively soon, if he can't get close up that gap and pass Tony Garcia here, then he's gonna have a lot of traffic in his mirrors in not too long. Of course, Tony has the unfortunate thing of being behind some very experienced drivers who are only going to get faster as the race rolls along.
Absolutely at this point. As these drivers continue to chug along and try and separate and/or try and move up the pylon. By the way, the gap for the race lead has shrunk a decent amount. It was up to about 3 seconds just 2 laps ago. It's down to 1.7 seconds. The second place car, Timo Vassaloppi, has been closing in slowly but surely to Tim Claessens. Remember, the reason Tim got that gigantic start, LCM, was that blistering quick launch off the start. No one was able to get inside a slipstream from the get-go.
Nobody, and Teemu also had to fight early on, and he had to fight to get the car under him. You can play a lot of that with tire pressures alone. These drivers run relatively low tire pressures this season. It could be that Tim has been running a little bit higher once in this race. He's been confident about his qualifying pace, wants to get away early on, doing the Gernot strategy, so to speak, and then Teemu has run lower tire pressure, starting to get the car under him just now. I talked about it earlier on, you have to wait a couple of laps until you get it under you. And also, speaking of Teemu, speaking of Antti, they ran exactly the same lap time last time by. Lap 5, both of them 1:54.536.
And by the way, the 7 machine is already pulling away from Antti as well by almost 2 seconds. Gained about a 10th this lap alone to the race leader. 3rd and 4th is also into a small train, with Durek still holding onto the back end of the 2 machine. As you take a look at them head through Murray's Corner and pass by the Auto Racing Museum here in Australia. So everyone's into a rhythm here still, an estimated 17 laps to go, starting lap number 7 of 23.
And Tim Claessens, our leader, I'm looking at his times now, a little bit of an improvement, 1:54.8, but also a little bit of damage to his front wing on the right side. That's gonna play an effect. Now, these cars do get damaged easily, and if you see wing damage, that might not mean too much because the car may just bottom out, you may have hit a wrong curb, you get a bit of damage. It's gonna affect you, a couple of tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths per lap, perhaps, but if you get skirt damage as well as wing damage, then that's gonna be an issue for you in terms of straight line speed. So Tim has to nurse that as well, get the car back under him, and I'm sure he knows that the car isn't feeling quite well. You don't see the damage from the cockpit, but you can feel it, Justin, and when you feel it, you lose a little bit of your confidence. You start to look at the lap times, you see the gap coming down. You may try to instinctively push a little bit harder as well, because he knows that Teemu is getting closer and closer and closer. But there is, of course, the question, looking at Teemu's performance this season, it's one thing to get close, but it's another thing to keep the car on track before he can make the pass, because he's been fast, he's been right within the top 3 so many times this season, but he's been so unlucky so far. Could this be Teemu's day? Well, it'll be quite an interesting one if he managed to keep it together at Bathurst.
Absolutely. But the thing is, though, too, this is a track where you normally, in any car, have the potential of getting lots of bodywork damage. What happens if you have both wings flared up, like we just seen on the onboard with the 8 machine?
Well, you know, you're gonna lose a lot more time. You know, that's one of the things that which are affecting you, of course. If you hit the rear wing, then you have also hit something else. You can't really damage the rear wing in these cars without damaging something else, unless you go directly rear first into the wall, or you get a straight rear contact. But usually you damage by hitting the left rear corner or the right rear corner into the wall, and that's also gonna affect the toe angles, the camber angles on your rear wheels, the suspension, and then the rear wing is really the least of your worries at that point. So you're gonna lose, of course, time in the straights because you get a lot more drag. You lose the aerodynamic efficiency. You don't really gain anything from the added drag either. So you have the speed of a high downforce car without actually having the high downforce. And the effect is both actual, you know, physical effect in the sense that you'll be going slower, but also a mental effect in that the driver will easily get frustrated.
Right now, taking a look on board with some of the drivers right now as they make their way up the hillside once again. This is from the back end of Villeneuve, it appears. As you take a look at this, he's trying to pull away from 13th position. Everyone's just been into a rhythm at this point. You mentioned trying to stay focused. That seems to have been the name of the game for a lot of these drivers right now, where there hasn't been too many moves quite yet for passes. There have been attempts, but there hasn't been surefire passes quite yet, so to speak, forced by mistakes or using slipstream. What are you thinking of as a driver here if you've been trying to set up a pass now for 4, 5, 6 laps potentially now in a train of cars like this and haven't been able to make a pass yet?
Well, you just have to make one mistake, really. You try to put your nose in there, try to show an intention to pass. Of course, you got these fast 90-degree corners on the bottom of the track, both of these ones.
Trouble in front of them. John Stevens has spun around in the middle of the racetrack. Everyone evades. One car off to the sand trap. Villeneuve will fall down the pylon while Stevens is still stuck in the grass.
Oh yeah, Stevens just came into the chase corner, braking in at exactly the correct point. Unfortunately, his car bounced up just a little bit under braking. He was loose, then he came into the corner. He had the correct speed, but for some reason he just turned in a little bit too hard, maybe getting a bit loose on the entry, the car bottoming out a tad, and when he turned the wheel, he had already lost it. It was already over by the time he turned the wheel, and it was a bit clumsy from John in a sense that when he was in the middle of the track, of course he can't really go forward, but he had to wait for a long time, then he had to reverse and get him back on track. He will not have any damage from that one, but he lost a lot more time than you normally would in a simple half spin.
Yeah, Villeneuve is all the way back to 15th position now because of that, and a good 5 seconds behind where he was. One of the other battles that's been forming up is right about here, right now, where Costa is currently trying to hold off Millward. We also have Frisch just in front of these drivers by a couple tenths of a second.
And we have Martin Yoon in the wall in the number 8 machine as well. He went up at the mountain. He hit the red wall, which is what we call it, the red wall on the left. Well, that damaged his car. He hit the concrete wall on the right, got sucked into it, got back on track, but his car is pretty much toast at this point. He's trying to nurse it back to the pit lane, I think. Lost a couple of positions, got Alexis Vikov behind him as well.
Yeah, you've seen the hit on your screens and still has about a half a track until we can get to the pit lane to get the damage done. You can actually tell a little bit that that suspension is broken with how much it's just wiggling down that straightaway.
Yeah, it's wiggling. You're fighting to keep it under control, and you can feel it so well in these cars as well because you got nothing in terms of electronics. You got no ABS, you got no traction control, of course, stability control. They haven't even heard of it. Stability control is the right foot, so you know you just have to keep it under control. Now, what you can do at this point, if you do want to finish the race, and what I think Alex Millward has done, because he's driving a similarly damaged car in actually pretty good pace, he can adjust the anti-roll bars here, Justin. And with those, you can have an effect in that if the car starts to wiggle, you just go really tight on the front end roll bar, really stiff, and you can get a little bit more precision into your steering in that if a movement happens, it doesn't allow the car to wiggle so much. So Alex Milward has been very impressive with his damaged car at his point of the race. So, you know, he's actually catching up to Juan Costa. Oh! It just went so wide. He looks like Gilles Villeneuve out there. Just going 3 wheels on the track, 1 wheel on the curb, sideways, with a damaged car, and somehow keeping it under control. But that's how good these drivers are.
Would you believe me if that was how his car was in practice too, prior to this race as well?
Oh, yes.
On corner exit every time?
Yeah, well, not every time. You don't want it to be that way every time because you're gonna burn out those tires eventually.
Yeah.
Back in the olden days, that was not as much of an issue, but these cars do go sideways these days. And the good thing about going sideways is that unlike with the GD cars, you can actually save it.
Garcia in trouble. He's now coming out of the grass. Let's take a look at the GSRC replay and what happened to the 10th place car. And mistakes are starting to come in as the tire wear pops up. How did Garcia make his mistake? Take a look.
Yeah, Garcia just, you know, one of those guys who is new to this series. He came into the deeper forced elbow, under braking, just, you know, got too anxious on the throttle, slid a little bit wide, did the right thing of trying to save it by applying more throttle, you know, getting it a bit sideways, getting it turning better. Unfortunately, he ran out of track, hit the right rear into that Falcon Walter and, you know, hit the front as well, then hit the wall real hard because he was already loose by the time he hit the wall. He had no control over the car, and that is grabbing really badly, and he's into the pit lane, and that's no wonder.
Taking a look at the battle again with Milward for P number 7. Rasmus is still behind, with Chris Bowman currently in the 9th position, a +3 on the day. And there were some who call this track a gift with this combination of car, and we're seeing the intensity of that right now for these competitors, especially coming to the halfway point this upcoming time by, with already so many competitors having to deal with potential aero damage, some floor damage, some wing damage. Just 3 total drivers, though, are out of the race.
Yeah, and, you know, if you're just consistent, if you're just calm, driving at 95%, you can get some pretty good points out of here just by doing that. But then again, if you do that, you're no longer a racing driver. So, you know, you can't call... If you're driving at 95%, I'm saying it right now, you're not a racing driver, you're just a hobbyist. And that's fine. If you want to race for a hobby, if you want to finish 12th, you're happy with that, that's fine. But these guys at the top, they are racing drivers, they are going at their best pace. Speaking of which, the gap between Claessens and Vaskilampi, 1.2 seconds.
Yes, that gap has been slowly closing on down. Milward nearly sends the car off into the grass, so on the chase. And now he's really holding up Rasmus and Bowman in this battle for 7th on back. Claessens, the fastest driver last time by a 1/10 of a second. Milward bouncing around. This is getting very slippery now in this train at this point. What do you do if you're Rasmus, knowing you have a very loose car in front of you, just haven't been able to find a hole yet because, well, Milward's been sliding around the hole and covering it.
You lick the stamp and send it. That's what you do. You try to get him out of his focus, get him out of his racing line, knowing he has a loose car. Let's see if he goes to the inside. No, he doesn't, and he should have, because that's a single line corner. If you get it up on the inside in turn number 2, that's a pass. That's a given pass. I've only seen GD cars pass on the outside there or hold their position on the outside. So Mike is being a little bit nice, which is fine, all fine and dandy. He's biding his time. He knows he probably doesn't have to pace to catch up to Juan Costa, even if he wouldn't know about his damage actually. I think if Mike would know about the damage to Costa, he would be more eager to get past Alex because he has positions to gain here. He has a potential top 6 in gain. He just needs to be a little bit more aggressive also with Chris Bowman closing in. I wouldn't want to stick behind Alex for too long. In fairness to Mike, he already tried to pass onto the chase a couple of laps ago. Couldn't quite make it work, but he just needs to get closer into mountain section, get closer into these straight lines. He's too far again, and even if he closes up on the straight, he will not be close enough to get a pass into the chase, so he needs to either get a good run onto the second straight, up on top of the mountain, or gets a good run out of the mountain. Those are the 2 passing places here, and Mike needs to make sure he's in the best possible position for both of them.
And that time he actually was a farther back than he was the last time for the chase. That hurt him in that opportunity, of course, last time by coming to 11 laps to go. And a new fastest lap time set, a 1:53.7 by Lepesta. That is the third place driver who is 3.5 seconds behind the leader. He is now flying. The track is starting to cool off a little bit by about 3 degrees Fahrenheit. That's because of the cloud cover you may have noticed across the racetrack. In turn, these drivers are setting the fastest laps they have all race.
Yeah, and Antti Lepistö, he's starting to warm up to the race at this point. His car is starting to get under him. He's starting to gain confidence. That's when you start to make mistakes, but that's also when drivers like Antti start to gain time. He knows, okay, the track is getting a little bit cooler. I can adjust things. This is when the car starts to feel alive. And I'm starting to see the car in front of me get bigger and bigger, and he's starting to get closer and closer. Now, of course, Teemu Vaskilampi also hasn't been able to quite find the pace he had earlier on. Has dropped about half a second to him, but Antti is gaining time to Teemu. Now, the ideal thing for Teemu and for Antti is for Teemu to get faster, both for his sake and for Antti's sake, because they need to catch up to the leader. Otherwise, we see the two Finns fighting for second place, and neither will want that. Marco Derrick starting to lose a bit of time. Another guy who was mighty fast last time by, P number 5, Gernot Frisch, the multi-billion time champion in this series. He has more championships than I have fingers. And, you know, Gernot, he's starting to get the car under him again. 154 flat last time by, gap ahead, only 1.1.
Yeah, the Alfa Romero machine has been
getting closer and closer.
And yes, indeed, Rasmus trying to go for the dive. Millward still able to defend. And this is, mind you, while that car, each and every time to the chase, and I think that's partly why Ocean How, with that damage, has been struggling in some of these flatter corners. It's been sparking like crazy from the back end every time there's those corners. Here comes the pass from Rasmus. He gets cut off. Rasmus tries to make the move of the Tolman. Wheel-to-wheel contact as Millward tries to clip him with the glass. Pinches him off the racetrack.
No.
More damage on the 17, and that drops Rasmus back out to 10 to make it 9th.
Yeah, I mean, Alex was on the outside. Rasmus was entitled to the inside line. Okay, well, he was a little bit late alongside, but he wasn't doing a late lunge or anything. Alex first turned into the apex in turn number 1, got in front of him, and I think Alex thought Mike was braking too late, ran into him. No, that was Alex, that was on you. You turned in too early. You don't turn at the apex when there's a car there. You will hit. And then Alex just came from the left, and just pinched him off the racetrack. You can't do that, Alex. You just can't do that. Well, he was able to hold on to the position, but that's usually a serious this one where they appreciate the clean drivers, where they race clean, where they have a gentlemanly conduct. Where Alex, that was not gentlemanly at all. And I wonder what Mike will think of that one.
Yeah, that was not the smartest of moves, to say the very least. Millward still holds on to 7th, and now Rasmus is now back to 9th position because of that contact, which sent him in the grass. Chris Bowman was able to make the pass and move up 4 positions now for the drop of the green flag as a result. In the Martini machine, you see that greenish, red, and blue machine up the track. Coming up to 9 laps to go, by the way, for this race. The lead is separated in part with the track cloud cover from 1.2 seconds back up to 2.2-ish seconds since Claessens has hit his fastest stride, but 3 straight purple laps from the top 3. You heard that right. Claessens set a purple lap, Vaskilampi set a purple lap, then Lepesta set a purple lap. Fastest lap went to the 2 machine in that stretch.
Yeah, and these cars get faster and faster as the race goes along, especially now that the track's cooling off. Expect them to get even faster, but now the problem, of course, for these drivers is that nobody's catching up to each other, really. Antti has a chance to catch up to Teemu. The gap now is about 1 second. But, you know, he's not getting there close enough, and especially for Teemu, it's a heartbreak because he's not catching up to Teemu at the rate he wants to. So he needs to find that extra bit of something. Teemu too has now clobbered his front wing at something. It may be a curb, it may be just running a little bit too low of a car. Antti's car still looks alright, and that's That's going to the veteran of him. Okay, his front wing is a little bit damaged too, so don't be too alarmed by that one. These drivers do take the curbs, and they make the conscious decision. As unbelievable as it sounds, Justin, it's a conscious decision. Okay, do I want my car to brake at some point, and I can be faster, even, even if it will brake, or do I want to make the car run so high and so soft or so stiff that it will just not brake unless I hit the wrong curb? Usually you take the first option. You know that if you put a wheel wrong, the front wing will brake, but you'll be still faster than with the other setup. So this track literally is breaking these cars all this time. These cars are getting more and more broken as the race goes along. You see the sparks flying, and you see the drivers piloting these braking machines, which are getting ever more loose as the fuel wears off, as the tire wears off. And it's literally a matter of, okay, who can punch the most out of their injured machine?
Yeah, we're getting some of the answers with that, with the way this race has flowed. Durix is now dropped back to a red box situation. Overblows the corner out of Hell Corner. As Prich is now within drafting range, just a 3/10 behind. Can he get enough speed to move himself to the 4th position? He has been in 5th all race. To the inside, heading to Griffin's Bend. Prich squeezes him off the racing line. Move the Alfa Romeo up to 4th.
Textbook stuff from Gernot. Textbook stuff, He was just getting to the inside, knew he had the inside line. Marco, for some reason, didn't block it off. If I was Marco, I would have taken the inside line earlier on. You can't change the line that late because you will lose all your speed. But that's what I was saying earlier on, if you get it up the inside in turn number 2, there's no way to defend it from the outside. And I think Marco knew it by the time Gernot was on the inside. He didn't even bother to battle it. He knew that Gernot was faster. Gernot going in the 4th place. Marco still on a good 5th place. Trying to now run away from Tommy Costa, from Alex Milward, from Chris Baldwin, from Mike Masimas as well. Mike's pace, it has dropped down since that incident with Alex. He's done now 55.3 last time by, losing a lot of ground to Chris Baldwin now.
Yeah, let's take a look at P12 meanwhile as well. This is where Villeneuve is now trying to close back in on his recovery drive after being sent off to the grass, remember. Martin Granberg is the driver in front and trying to run away in his Lotus machine at this point. And you have to wonder what Villeneuve's currently thinking, remember, from that situation where we talked about the potential mistakes setting up opportunities for cars to move up in positions. You just hope it's not the mistake of somebody else that causes you to lose positions. He's trying to gain them back.
Yeah, what driver is thinking at this point? Let's see, lap 16, you were on the grass earlier on. You know you had the pace for potentially a top 10. You're sitting in 13th place. French expletives is my guess.
Good way to put it. Good way to put it. So how do you calm the French expletives into positive results?
You turn it into a power. Adrenaline is a cruel mistress, but it also can be a way to empower you. So you can force yourself to concentrate more. You start to concentrate more. You start to get angry at yourself, at someone else even potentially. It doesn't matter really what you're angry at as long as you're angry, because then you can, force yourself to, okay, come on, man, get yourself together. Go a little bit faster in here. Get yourself together here. Concentrate. Come on, improve. You know you can do better. And you get the self-criticizing, almost kind of like, spanking yourself to a better speed. And that can be a powerful thing if you know how to harness it. If you don't know how to harness it, well, see Milward Alex.
Absolutely. Still trying to run away from this is Granberg in 12th position with that rhythm. By the way, you mentioned Milward. He's still in 7th position, by the way. And after his bump you referred to, by the way, that 4 machine, has slowly closed in, by the way, on 6th and has ran away from 8th on back in that battle train. Of course, the 8th place car is the teammate to the 12th place machine you see here. At this point, a lot of these drivers look like they are trying to make sure they get to the finish at this rate.
Yeah, Alex Milward is, he's driving so angry right now. He's driving at a great pace. I must say, his pace is excellent. And I think that's why he's angry, because he started only at 7th place. He screwed up his qualifying, obviously. He has a race.
Trouble for 8th place. Chris Baumann has crashed in the Martini Racing Lotus machine. He is stopped right towards the run of Murray's corner, right under the Armor All Bridge. My goodness.
And
Ended up
Rasimas hit
just
the wall.
making a mistake.
Yeah, Rasimas hit the wall trying to avoid him as well. What Baumann did there, he was trying to catch up time. He went a little bit too fast into chase. And that's when you see just mistakes, snowballing. Because he went too fast into the chase. He got sideways. He had to take the wrong line at the exit of the chase. He hit that high curb on the left side. And as soon as he climbed over that high curb, it's the same as in exit of Deckner 2 in Suzuka. You are a passenger at that point. We call it going Tony Gardner pro skateboarding at that point, and hitting the inside wall, well, he's a passenger and he wasn't able to keep it under control.
And you can see the tire contact there adds some damage to his race machine. Baumann has already ducked his way into the pit lane. And that will allow Giosk Leocata. Remember, the driver who had to serve a penalty after lap 1 took pit service and 4 tires. He's about to move up into the top 20, so he's still running. And overall, he has gained a few positions as a result after losing 5 net.
Yeah, and there's also an excellent battle going on for the 14th place, actually. Alexis Tapiavico and Timothy Reed, we haven't really mentioned those guys as the race rolls along, and the reason is clear, they're down in the 14th place, but they are getting closer and closer to each other. Timothy Reed being able to claw up that gap. He's 7 tenths faster last time by, so it's gonna be an exciting one for these two guys, because, when you are over a second, 2 seconds slower than the leaders, it means you're losing 2 seconds somewhere on the track, and that's why the battles in the mid-pack are always more interesting. These drivers, of course, trying their best to do as well as they can. They're good drivers still. They're not quite the level of the leaders, but they're good drivers. But the reason this is exciting is because these drivers don't know all the tricks yet, so it can be a little bit more unpredictable. And here goes Reed on the outside. Vico taking the inside line early on. Reed to the outside. Will he send it? No, he won't.
Yeah, didn't want to dive it on in and risk contact. We've seen that in a few instances here in many different classes here in the chase. Reed trying to be nice and patient, coming to 5 laps to go for these cars in this race. 5 laps to go from Bathurst. And Reed has kind of actually been quietly pretty impressive in this run. A +5. Vico, the car in front, is a +8 from the drop of the green flag, and both of them have kept fairly consistent and clean.
They have been, but they also have one guy behind them giving some speed. Timothy, old man. Timothy, well, I'm not sure if he's old or not. He might not actually be, but Tim, you got to put some pedal to the metal. You got to get past Alexis sooner rather than later, because you got John Stevens behind you giving you some pressure. John Stevens a second faster last time by than Vico. Remember, Stevens had that half spin earlier on. Well, he's been making a recovery drive ever since he started 9th. He's now 15th, can see 14th and 13th right ahead of him.
Well, that's Marc-Andre Defrisch, who is closing on in. Defrin, I should rather say, pardon me, who is trying to make a move right behind in that machine. Nearly tried to make the move into Griffin's Bend last time by and lost both of them some time in the process. So Stevens is trying to go offensive while also trying to play defense behind him.
Yeah, and that's quite an interesting thing. And Dufresne has been, mind you, he's been quite impressive in this race. I didn't expect much of him, started 20th, but he's been in a solid pace. I don't think Stevens has to worry about him too much, just worry about the battle back ahead, because he will catch up to Alexis and he will catch up to Timothy as soon as he, just needs to be patient for a couple more laps. We got 23 laps in this race, we're on the 19th one. He's got 4 laps to go. He's got 4 laps to do it. I think he will, but it's gonna come down to the last lap. Rasimas also into the pit lane from P number 11, so his good run is over. And he actually had if you get a replay of that one, he had a little bit of a moment exiting the chase.
Remember, he hit his tires along the right side wall about a lap or two ago. His car was kind of down the straightaways crab walking, and then he ended up hitting the curbs coming out of the chase, and that added to it, and he said, you know what, time to come in, because the skew was completely broken.
Yeah, he saw what happened to Chris Baumann, and he decided that, hey, that looks like fun, I want to try it too. A little bit of a board slide there, or is that frontside Smithy, I reckon? Well, either way, he's not getting any points of that one. He lost a good position a couple of laps to go. I'm sure he will be gutted, and why wouldn't he be? Because his race has been pretty unlucky. He hasn't put a wheel wrong before that all race long. He was pushed out by Alex Milward in one of the dirtiest moves I've seen this season, I must say directly. Alex had no right to do that, and then he lost a bit of time. Due to that, he was avoiding trees spinning, Bowman spinning. He hit the wall again, and then he just put a wheel wrong one time and sent it into the wall. But that's what can happen at Bathurst.
Yep, absolutely. And by the way, you seen the angle he was in the pit lane. That was how much the car was skewed. About 270 degrees out, so to speak, a skateboarding reference from our director, Joe Peak. But as this has gone on, Tim Claessens has just rolled his way away from the rest of the group again. Remember, the gap went down to about 1.2, 1.1 seconds. It's up to more than 4 seconds.
Yeah.
Tim has been on rails this race.
Yeah, we see the same thing as we saw in Spa. He was a bit calmer this time behind the middle point of the race, but he was managing the gap all the time. And Tim is starting to adopt the Jackie Stewart driving style. Very aggressive first lap. You have to be fast on the first lap. You have to settle in. Then at the second lap, you can look at the situation a little bit. But then laps 3 and 4, they have to be fast once again. So, and anytime anybody starts to close in, you have to put in your best possible lap time as soon as you see them getting closer, because that's how you keep them on a leash. That's how you keep them under control, and that's how they will get used to the fact that your pace is the absolute maximum pace in this race, and that's how you will collect the victories. That is a pretty simple thing in theory, but in practice, Justin, it's a little bit more complicated than that, because you've got to have the skill, the consistency, and the mindset to pull that off.
Exactly, and based on what I've seen experience-wise with Tim, regardless of the car, he showed he's got the experience and the skill and the patience and the confidence to pull it away. Right now, speaking of the battle you were talking about with Vico and Reed before, Reed still has not been able to get by in this train. John Stevens has pulled away from the 15th place machine and is starting to join these machines, so Reed might want to put a reading book on and push that book through the donating slot. Some of these are hard.
Yeah. But ahead of him, he's got the Veni Vidi Vico, so who can really put some good defensive performances on. A side note also, Grunberg and Kate side by side. Then Kate and Grunberg and Frick, and Kate goes wide, and Martin Grunberg takes the position. So a couple of good battles going on at the later portions of this race. These drivers are starting to be tired of looking at each other's rear wings, and instead they will be looking into each other's positions. That means, of course, that Carl Villeneuve, Alexis Tapia-Vico, as well as Timothy Reed, especially Timothy Reed and Alexis Tapia-Vico, that's a battle. They will have to get settled soon because John Stevens is closing in. That's an exciting one. We got a couple of exciting ones. Justin, which one is your favorite?
I think this train might be the favorite out of the two at this point, to be honest, because you mentioned veterans mixed in here. You've got Stevens trying to recover from a mistake early on in the race. Then you got a newer driver in Vico curling in that green martini-colored machine, trying to hold on. The question is going to be who will get the spots out of this grouping. Stevens got close to a dive, didn't take it. Reed gets the best corner out of the three of them, and Stevens loses a good 2 car lengths coming out of Griffin's Bend as they approach the cutting, coming towards the white flag this time by for these competitors.
Yeah, and Stevens wouldn't mind that too much probably because he had no real overtaking opportunity ahead of the meter. What he needs to do is see, what he's hoping is that Timothy Reed gets closer. So when Tim and Alexis start to battle, then he can just, jump in and collect the trumps and collect the positions. He needs those two guys to go side by side. He can't really take them one by one because he knows that both of them will be braking late anyway. He needs them to lose time. And this is where Alexis is losing time. Down to the SS after the Dipa. Down to the SS and then into the Forest's elbow. Alexis is losing a little bit of time. You can find Tim getting closer, John getting closer, both of them trying to maximize their exit. Oh, and John hits the wall, and that's, I think, all she wrote for John Stevens because that has to be some damage, and it is. The car is scrubbing.
John Stevens hit the wall with the right rear tire specifically. Watch on the corner exit. We've seen a similar situation before coming out of Forest's elbow. Just the edge of the wall Well, reaches out like an elbow, and if you hit it, well, it's like a funny bone. Except it's not funny.
No, it's not funny at all, but hitting your funny bone is not funny either. That's not very fun. So yeah, yeah, it is an apt comparison actually. A couple of things to keep an eye on here on the last lap. Antti Lepisto getting mighty sideways on top of the hill, trying to get Teemu Vaskilampi still in the last lap. They are not that far away from each other. Teemu Vaskilampi about to have his first good finish of the season, so that's something he'll be chasing. Antti is putting some pressure on him, and behind them, Marco Derricks, Alex Milward, Juan Costa, Marco Derricks and Alex Milward starting to close in on one another as well. So as Tim Claessens rules the field behind him, there are a couple of things that are still open, but Antti is not going to be close enough. So Justin, for Tim Claessens, it's second time in a row.
Yes, indeed, as he comes around the final corners. He has been picture perfect from the drop of the green flag, pulled away by more than 2 seconds off the jump, has ran away by almost 5 seconds to the checker flag. Get your pom-poms up. Tim Claessens wins again, this time at Bathurst.
He does, and Teemu Vaskilampi for the first time this season has a solid finish. And he's gonna be celebrating that one, as is Antti Lepisto, another P number 3 and still well up in the points. Gernot Ford, Marco 5th, Alex Milward trying to challenge into the last corner, nothing doing there. He'll be sitting in the 6th place, and I hope he'll be looking in the mirror after the race. Juan Costa, Thomas Thorpe, Martin Grumberg, Frick and Cafe are the next guys to go over the finish line, and John Stevens has somehow caught up to Tim Reed on the last lap, but whoa, he might be actually close enough.
Let's take a look at this. Stevens, despite hitting the wall the last time by, he's got a chance to make the move on the outside. His one last chance. Reed gives him the squeeze, and Reed able to defend it. So, final corner out of Murray's corner this time. Vico comes away with 12th position. 13th Reed, Stevens 14th, and then DeFriend comes home in P15 just behind.
Ooh, and Suarez and Herner are actually battling with the last lap as well. Keith Herner, Pablo Suarez, 17th place. Pablo trying to get a move going. We haven't seen these guys all race long. Pablo got alongside on the last lap into the last corner. He tries to send it, but he was way too far. And good exit turning into a spin. So Pablo Suarez, a little bit of a moment of shame there, but he tried his best, no shaming that. And he doesn't lose any positions. So all good in Pablo land.
So Suarez able to cross the line 18th and 19th, just moments away from crossing line himself. That was Leo Cata, who ended up having that penalty at the start of the race. Takes advantage of the DNFs in today's event. Take a step aside, pardon me, I should rather say, we'll take a look towards how things shake out in today's action with your unofficial race results. Take a step aside. When we come back, we'll have more action on GSRC. Welcome back to GSRC's coverage of the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series. So now we take a look towards your race results in this one. It was a dominating class effect from Tim Claessens, who won by 4.992 seconds over Timo Vaskilampi. Antti Lapesta finished in 3rd, while Frisch came home in 4th position. Durix came home 5th. Miller was able to make the move on Costa in the final laps of the race to move to 6th. Costa still came home in 7th. Torp came home in 8th, a +6 finish for him, while Granberg rounded up the top 9. Then, Freak 10 Caddy rounded up the top 10.
Carl Villeneuve was 11th, being able to hold on to that, starting 11th too. Alexis Tapia-Vico started 21st, finished 12th. Then it's Timothy Reed, John Stevens, not quite able to make it through in that battle was John. Marc-Andre Dufresne, 15th, Barry West 16th, Keith Turner 17th, the veterans of the series, being able to make it to the finish line. Pablo Soares 18th, Josué Leocata 19th, and 10 we run through the list of retirements: Michael Simas, Chris Bauman, Tony Garcia, Martin Yoon, and Jamie Hall.
Rest of the field were DNFs. That included Bauman, Garcia, along with Martin June. Jamie Hall was the first DNF after hitting the wall on the first lap of the race. But there's going to be only one victor at this track, and it's Tim Claessens, who dominated today and is out for Romeo. Tim, first of all, congratulations on back-to-back victories. How do you feel?
Good afternoon, guys. Thanks. It was a lot more difficult than Spa was, definitely. Timo, he gave me a really good fight all the way throughout the race. I got lucky with my launch of the start and managed to creep out a little gap, but yeah, that was quickly gone away when I made myself a little mistake in the last corners. Yeah, Timo, he just kept me honest throughout the entire race. Just like the last 5 laps, I managed to creep away again, but this was a really difficult one.
Yeah, how you mentioned some of the difficulties with this track in the opening statement, but as well, how is it trying to manage this circuit with, especially the mountainside, with so many ups and downs, so many risks of damaging the front wing, and if you made any mistakes, you would slam into a wall, potentially. How difficult was it to keep yourself focused to make sure you didn't risk damaging the car severely?
Yeah, that was what I prepared myself for the entire week with the way I built my setup. I know this track way too good, so I know you have to play it safe. So I went with quite a lot of downforce again, basically just like last week. So the entire mountain section from start to basically the end of the race, I didn't have to deal with any oversteer, because that's what you absolutely don't want in those corners. I managed to keep it balanced as well with the onboard anti-roll bars. But overall, I just started with a quite understeery car at the beginning of the race, and then just it kept getting more balanced and balanced towards the end of the race to make the ends comfortable while still being able to push if I was being attacked by someone or wanted to attack someone myself. And it actually worked out. I could just keep pushing on, and the car wouldn't break away. I really like the car this week.
You'll be in that car next week, though, to Phillip Island Circuit. Your thoughts on that racetrack as you get ready for a much different track than this today, rather.
It's also an amazingly fun track, Phillip Island. Always enjoyed it, and I think with this car, some of those corners, mostly my experience there is with GT cars, but in this car, like turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, they're all going to be epic fun, I think. And yeah, I'm already looking forward again for next weekend.
Anyone you want to thank for being a part of your victory today?
Our team, the Brabham car, he did great again, and I hope it keeps supporting me the next weeks.
Congratulations on the victory today, Tim. Dominating of effort.
All right, thanks, guys. Have a good one, and maybe see you next week. Who knows?
Tim Claessens coming home with the victory today. Congratulations to him on back-to-back victories. Ocean's now standing by with their second-place finisher. Ocean, over to you.
Yes, we have Teemu Vaskilampi here. And Teemu, first of all, how does it feel to actually finish a race on Sunday?
Yeah, that feels good. And go figure, hardest place to finish a race. And here I finish, and other places I can't finish. So, but yeah, this is a place of celebration. Too bad I don't have any beers left.
Maybe that's the secret, Teemu. You can't have any more beers on race day.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, maybe that's it. So you started pretty well. You were up during qualifying. second fastest in qualifying, and you started to catch up to Tim in the middle portions of the race. You were pretty fast, but you were also fighting off pressure from Antti. But then I heard you also saying on the race chat after the race, saying to the other drivers, you had to just stop chasing. Was it the experiences from the past 4 weeks that led to that decision?
Yeah, partly, and at some point I was quite close to Tim, and I slid a couple corners in a row, and I kind of spooked there and decided to just take it my pace, not push and see if something happens. But Tim had very good pace at the end, so no chance there without pushing, taking risks. First half, I felt like at some point I could have even gone faster, but when I hit that 1.5 second limit, 1.5 second behind Tim, I felt like I just can't do some corners like in free air, but I don't know. But yeah, survived.
Yeah, that's the most important thing, to survive. 4 weeks of bad results and 10 at Bathurst, the second place. Do you think the ketchup bottle is now open?
I hope so. If I want to have 8 weeks with points, I can't crash anymore. So yeah, I better focus a bit better next weeks.
Yeah, indeed. Well, Phillip Island next week, then Indy Road, then Nürburgring. It's gonna be a tight schedule, but we'll be hoping to see more results from you, Teemu. It was an excellent performance. Congratulations. And if you would like some free words, then go ahead.
Nothing comes in mind. Good race. I'm very happy to survive. Nothing else.
Yeah, that's Teemu Vaskalampi, everybody finishing second today and having a very good result from himself and for his team. And we'll be hearing more from him over the course of this season, I'm sure. But Justin, before we head off, I believe you do have some final closing words.
Yes, indeed. It was an exciting race today here from Mount Panorama Circuit. We're glad to have you with us throughout the coverage this afternoon and this evening, wherever you are across the world. We'd like to thank the Lotus 79 community for taking part in what was an exciting race here at this racetrack today with some exciting moments. We also like to thank the companies that provide the software and hardware for broadcast listed up on your screen. Additional thanks go to the Lawn, who provides her wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today in OCN and Joe Peak. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at Global SimRacing Channel. You can also check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global SimRacing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. Don't forget to head over to our YouTube page and hit that big red subscribe button, as well as the notification bell, so you don't miss a moment here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Next race for the season heads to Phillip Island Circuit. That'll take place next Sunday, once again at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We also have upcoming races for other series listed up on your screen, including the Autobahn Sports Car Challenge, just so happens to be at Phillip Island coming up. Be sure to check those out and many more and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.